Okay, welcome back. We're talking about the case switch statement. So if I want to have multiple ones happening, I just stack them up on top of each other. Okay, now notice that there's the only curly braces are right here, and scope of a variable is very, very much dependent upon the curly braces. So if you don't have curly braces, you're not really doing any scope thing. Which means, for example, I can't go in here and put in something like, whatever, int code is equal to 12. Okay, that works, but I can't go down to here and do it again a second time because that's all within the same scope. I can't declare a variable 2 times within the same scope. Kind of makes sense? Now, to tell you the truth, to avoid these kind of issues, I typically don't declare variables inside case statements at all. That's the way I make the problem go away. I just don't do it. Okay, kind of sort of makes sense. Okay, now it's extraordinarily rare and kind of frowned upon that you would have a thing called a fall through, where you wanted it to do 10 followed by 20. That's very rare and probably not a good idea. And a lot of the other languages, for example, C#, will not allow you to do that at all. So I'm going to require you to put in break statements here, okay? So that's a good idea. It's a good thing to learn. So when you go to other language, when you go to C++ or you go to Visual Basic or C# or one of the other guys, they all require these break statements in there. So you might as well learn how to do it the most portable way. Okay. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is talks about how to format our output a little bit better. And to tell you the truth, this is kind of tough. It's a thing called format specifiers. Format specifiers. And let me tell you, this is awful lot to learn. And thankfully, I'm not going to make you learn the entire frickin' thing because it's just huge, the amount of stuff that's in here. Okay. So let me give you a before and an after. So I say something like system.out.println, and then I say my age is, and then I put a space, and then put in the age. Whoops. Come on. Age, and my score is, and then I put in the score. Okay, now there's nothing really wrong with this, right? I mean, it works. The problem is things are kind of broken up, and like, for example, where does that comma thing? It's just kind of difficult to see. So another technique for doing this is to use format specifiers. So here's going to be the exact same thing: printf, not ln, and I'm going to say my age is, and I'm going to put a %d, comma, and my score is %d. And then since I had a new line before, I'm going to have to manually put that in there. And then I'm going to, now that I've got the string part built with these little spots, I got a spot for %d, which is where a number goes, and another %d at the end. Then I put the variables that go fill in those spots, which is age and score. Okay, so they should come out the same. Let's go see. So my age is 42, and my name is Bob, and my age is 42, and my score is 88, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do. They look absolutely the same, don't they? Okay, so let's talk about what kind of can go in there. Here's a figure that they use to try to describe it all. So with a printf, I put these little guys in here, and then they're done in the correct order. So the first one is the first one over here. The second one is the second one over here. Kind of sort of makes sense? So in my case, the first one was age, so that has to be age, and the second one is score, so kind of lines up. Kind of makes sense? Okay. Notice that we had to put a new line in here because this was a print line, and if I wanted them to be exactly the same, the printf guide, there is no printfln, right? So when you're using the printf guide, you have to provide your own new line if you want one, rather than the difference between print and println. Okay, so there's a heck of a lot of options here. I mean, tons and tons of options here. And so let's just look at some of the options. So here is what they kind of sort of look like. So all format specifiers start with a %. And then there's going to be some sort of a flag. And the flag will be like D for a plain old integer. By the way, I wish these things were like I for integer, but hey, come on. D for whole numbers. F for floating point numbers. S for strings. Those are the ones I typically use. I typically use D, F, and S. I mean, there's an awful lot more, but I'm not going to torture you. And then, optionally, how big this thing is going to be. So in other words, when you're printing something, maybe I want it to be, like all the columns to line up, right? So I want like to be left justified. So if I was like doing prices, I don't want, the dollar sign to be over here. The next line, it's over here because it's something a little bit longer. So I want it all lined up like on the decimal point. So I tell it how big I want it to be, and then if I want it right justified or left justified. Precision is like when you use floating point. There's no precision when using D, but if I'm using F, I can tell it I want it to 2 decimal points or 4 decimal points or something like that. Okay. And then, yes, the conversion, that is the thing for F for floating point or D for decimal integer. I'm wrong. That's not what flags are. Okay, so this is in general how they work. So let me just give you some examples of, okay. First of all, let me just show you how many there are. So here's a cool website that has all these guys in here. So here's all the specifiers. So here's the good ones. So D for decimals, U for unsigned, octal numbers and hexadecimal numbers and floating points and scientific notation and strings and characters and blah, 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 blah. And then there's umpteen gazillion things you can do. I mean, it just goes on and on and on about how to do conversions and all the little flags, which means if it's left aligned, if it's centered, if it's, how to do negative numbers and then just on and on and on and on and on, how to do dates and how to do, it just goes on and on and on. And again, I'm not going to torture you. If you can remember D for decimal, well, let me start. D for integers, F for floating point, and S for string, then you're in pretty good shape. So let's do one where I have a price, okay? So for example here, I'm going to say double price. I'll tell you what, let's do something better. Let's do annual salary. Annual salary is, I don't know, let's do 45,000 or 25, I don't know, 678.42. Okay? That's somebody's annual salary. All right, so I want to format that out as money. So here's how I would do it. So I print, first of all, let's just do it without. Okay, let's just do it the normal way. We'll do print ln. And then we'll say salary is, and then we'll just put this guy in here. All right, let's go see what that looks like. So my age is 42. My name is Bob. And salary, and that's not bad. Okay, hey, just for the heck of it. Well, no, it's okay. Let's keep going. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to format this guy out. So I'm going to say out, print ln, print f, sorry. Salary is, and then I'm going to say $, because I want this thing to have a $. By the way, $sign is not part of the format specifier, because the format specifier starts with the %sign. And then I want, if the numbers are big enough, I want to use a comma. That's one of those flags. And then decimal point to 2 spaces, and this is the float. Okay, let's go through this. Dollar sign, because I just wanted the dollar sign to show up, but it's not part of the format specifier. The beginning of the format specifier. The flag, which means if I have big numbers, I want to use commas at the thousands. Dot, which means at decimal point, I want to use decimal points, and I want to have 2 places after the decimal point. F means it's a floating point number. Okay, cool. And then annual salary. So let's run it. Whoa, you're going to forgive me if I can't spell salary, right? Okay, so 42, Bob. And so the second time, oh, now, hey, that's a good example. I forgot to put the new line in there. But anyway, my Salyar is, and now it's formatted with the comma and all that good stuff. Okay? So let me go ahead and put this guy back in. Hey, let's say I was calculating I was calculating the annual salary like you got a percentage. And so you got some crazy numbers stuck out there. So let's try that. Because I want to be able to show you that, okay, 42 and Bob. Okay, cool. So this is just going to dump it just the way it is, and this guy is going to do this. By the way, is it going to round off? Yeah. Ooh. Let's change that to a 9. Is it going to round off? Yeah, it's going to round off. Now, is it rounding the number? No, I'm not rounding the number. I'm just rounding off what you see on the screen. Okay, there's no math going on here. Okay, we have reached the end. This is a little complicated, and I'm not going to torture you too much. As long as you can remember how to do decimal numbers, integers, and strings, I'm going to be a happy kind of guy. Okay, before we go, let's make one more tweak to NetBeans to make it format things slightly better. So I'm going to go to Tools, go to Options, and going to go to the Editor, Formatting, make sure I'm using the Java guy. And then we started out with braces. Remember that? We went in there and we made all this new line. Well, apparently we have to also go to alignment and tell it I want a new line on the else, the finally, and the catch. Else, finally, and catch. We haven't got to finally and catch. That's chapter 11. But hey, while we're here, we might as well do it, right? So we hit the OK button. And now the next time you do the fancy auto format thing, it's going to format it the way I do it and the way it's in the book. Okay, that's the end of this chapter, and I'll see you guys again in the next chapter.